Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on martial politics. I hope you all are having a good day so far. Today I'm going to be discussing the Ohio and Arizona Senate races. I made a video on the Ohio Senate race in August, so 2 months ago. Actually, no, sorry, 3 months ago. Actually, probably a little over 3 months ago now, since I made it in like mid-August. So, but then there was obviously different polling, different news, different endorsements, and now there's been some significant changes in terms of polling endorsements, uh, stuff like that. There has been one new major candidate, Matt Dolan, who isn't really he's not that significant. His polling is literally below 5%. He's not really the most charismatic figure, so he's not really going anywhere. You also have Mike Turner, who has publicly expressed interest. If you might recognize him if you have been watching Tucker Carlson in the past couple of weeks. He was on Tucker Carlson a little over 2 weeks ago. Actually, yeah, 2 weeks ago or so. And he basically argued that American troops need to be deployed to eastern Ukraine. He got embarrassed, and Tucker obliterated him. And he also attacked J.D. Vance during the interview, which is very funny. I might put a link to that in the description down below or a card now so you can see that. But uh, that's really besides the point. So now we're going to get to actual polling for this. There's been some significant changes since August. So there's actually been three new polls since I have made that video. Not the most frequent polls. There's around a poll every month or so. Now there hasn't been a new poll in a little over a month. Not really the most significant thing since the primary is next year. Probably going to be a lot more polling next year in like January, February, March, and April especially. Uh, so you know but there's been besides that, there's been a lot of movement in the polls in favor of J.D. Vance and against Josh Mandel and against Jane Timken too. Um, where if you analyze the polling data and you look how the support has changed in this Remington research poll in June, J.D. Vance's support was only at 6%, and this is an internal Josh Mandel campaign poll by the way. And at 6%, uh, that is not like really significant at all, since Josh Mandel had 35% support. Uh, in the Fabrizio Lee poll, which is an internal poll from J.D. Vance's campaign, he only had 4% support. Fast forward a little over a month later, he had 12%, so tripled support, and I covered this in my last video. Next poll, J.D. Vance also had 12% support, according to this Josh Mandel internal poll, while Josh Mandel had 48% support. But if you look at the comparison, you're going to get to the next poll, the Remington Research poll. J.D. Vance's support is at 16%, Josh Mandel 34%. Meanwhile, in the last poll, he had 35%, and J.D. Vance had 6%. So 10-point increase for J.D. Vance, also a 1-point drop for Josh Mandel. WPA intelligence poll also showed J.D. Vance's support increasing from 12% to 13%, and Josh Mandel's support falling from 40% to 37%. So 3-point drop. And then in the most recent poll, J.D. Vance's support is at 16%. Josh Mandel is only at 19%, so only a 3-point difference, which is within the poll's margin of error, which is plus or minus 4 points. And there's again 43% undecided. A lot of voters don't really know who to support. And JD Vance's name ID has also increased pretty significantly since my last video. In this poll in the last poll, J.D. Vance's total favorability has increased by 13 percentage points. Unfavorability has only increased by 6%. And his name ID is at 61%, which, it's much better than his 42% of what he had before, and it's only going to increase as more and more news as he gets his name out there. So uh, with his with Josh Mandel's favorability, it's actually decreased by 3%, and his unfavorability has increased by 6%. So now he's a plus 24% favorability. Previously, he had a plus 33% favorability. So that's like a 10-point shift since April. And James Timpkin, favorability has increased by 2. Total unfavorability has actually decreased, but she's not really too significant right now. If you actually look at her support, it's decreased by 4 points since October, as probably more and more voters have, found more. Probably more and more voters are supporting J.D. Vance over Josh Mandel. So, pretty positive signs for J.D. Vance with the polling. In Arizona, also more good news for my endorsed candidate, Blake Masters. His support has also increased pretty significantly since August. His support here is only at 5%. Now it is it's probably at like more so 12%, maybe 13%. Still behind Mark Brnovich, but it is definitely on the increase, which is good news. Still, and again, positive sign is there's still a large amount of undecided voters. There hasn't really been that much attention to the race. Mark Brnovich only has that much support since he is a statewide elected official. He is the Attorney General in Arizona. So, but yeah, pretty good news for Blake Masters. Name ID has increased as well, obviously. And there's also some other news about other candidates. Justin Olson, some corporate commissioner guy. He's not really that significant. When he announced he was like bashing socialism or whatever, kind of pretty stupid. He's not really going to be that significant. You also have Jim Lamont, who's I think a solar businessman. He's sort of like the Mike Gibbons in this race. He actually had Mike Gibbons is a candidate in Ohio, by the way. He's a businessman there. His support is always around like 5 to 10%, um, and he's not really going to be that significant. You also have another candidate, Michael Mcguire, who's like I think he was like the head of the Arizona National Guard. His support has really been all over the place. In one poll, he's at 1%, 3%, 14%, 4%, 2%, then 12%. So pretty inconsistent when it comes to the polling there. Um, Michael Mcguire, his support has actually just been decreasing. I think the reason why he does have a lot of support is because of like his title. And I think he does have a pretty decent platform, so it makes sense why some people would support him. And he is again an outsider, along with every other candidate except for Mark Brnovich. Um, so uh, so Michael Mcguire, not a significant threat. In every poll, Blake Masters' support has increased compared to the prior poll by the same company, including in this OH Predictive Insights poll. In favorability, Mark Brnovich and Blake Masters. Mark Brnovich has increased. His favorability has increased, but his unfavorability has also increased, according to this Fabrizio Lee poll. Blake Masters' favorability also he has increased by 15%. Total unfavorability has only increased by 4%. So pretty good signs for Blake Masters. In terms of, there's also this other section for seen ad. The effect on Brnovich's favorability, the ad is pretty significant. Unfavorability is at 32%. Favorability is at 54%. Blake Masters is a 38% favorability, 10% unfavorable. So again, pretty good signs for Masters there. And overall, support has increased with the people who've seen Blake Masters' ad. he is only within 1 point of Mark Brnovich. So pretty good. I think oh yeah, 1/3 of Arizona Republican primary voters have seen Blake Masters' ad, uh, according to this poll as well, which is about like immigration. So besides the polling, now we have some big endorsement news. So both candidates, Blake Masters and J.D Vance, have been endorsed by Tucker Carlson. I think actually no, Blake Masters hasn't been endorsed by Josh Hawley yet, but he probably will in the future. Josh Hawley endorsed J.D Vance, I think in September. It might have been actually late August, but somewhere around then. Actually no, mid-September. Um, so positive endorsements. J.D. Vance has also gotten some endorsements from former Trump administration officials. This guy, Lighthizer, who was like Trump's trade representative, also like the EPA director, stuff like that. So, some endorsement news, but the most significant endorsement news is with Donald Trump, obviously. And if you've been paying attention, then you might have seen a story where Trump actually intended a fundraiser for Blake Masters at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. And here's a picture of Blake Masters with Trump. You know, really giga chads, honestly. Uh, but it looks most likely that Trump will endorse Masters. Masters has very good optics. I think in the general election, he's definitely gonna beat Mark Kelly by around 2 to 3 points, possibly more. Since Mark Kelly's favorability is sort of on, it's not really that good. And I think in like Mark Kelly versus generic Republican polls, he has like very narrow leads. Actually, I think one poll is like almost tied, and he doesn't even have above 50% in those polls. I think even in one poll, he doesn't even have like, above. Uh, he doesn't even have above 40%. So general election, I believe both. I think if J.D. Vance gets the nomination, I mean 100% he's going to win the general election. It is in Ohio. Voted for Trump by 8 percentage points last year, even though we were in a pandemic and an economic depression. But you know, uh, Trump still won there. And in a red wave year, J.D. Vance is probably going to win by 8 to 10 points, possibly more, depending on what happens during that general election season. There is a possibility that Tim Ryan could make the race a little closer, but it's definitely not going to be within probably even maybe 6 or 7 points. So, and I'll predict it. Actually, with Arizona, Blake Masters unpredicted. He's favored by 9. He's favored to get the nomination. A lot of people think Trump is going to endorse him. Trump has a very high favorability among Arizona Republicans, contrary to what people like promote with that. But Blake Masters, almost 60 cents for yes. So you know, going pretty well on the markets with Ohio. J.D. Vance, it's basically in a tie. There was a point where J.D. Vance was leading, but I don't really like to pay attention to these that much. There are some funny comps I like to look at, but not the best indicator. We're gonna see once there's more polling and once we get closer to the primaries, then we will actually know, who will win the primary. So this is the most significant story. Trump muscles into Arizona Senate primary. This was on. This was actually on the 6th this month, and Trump attended the fundraiser for Blake Masters. This article basically mentions the internal polling for Blake Masters, his support increasing, and yeah, pretty good news for both candidates. My last point for this video is actually for a contrast between the two candidates in terms of like people that are supporting them. So if you're on Twitter a lot, which is me, unfortunately, um, there are a lot of people who like to attack J.D. Vance because he's, a never Trumper or whatever, and there are people who don't like trust him, and uh, I can see why people would have those suspicions, but if you actually look, I mean, since maybe 2018 or so, actually no, 2017, more so late 2017, early 2018, J.D. Vance has consistently been on Trump's side. Um, in my previous in a video I did about J.D. Vance in July when he announced, I did show some I think I believe I showed his speech at the National Conservatism event, the first one. There was actually a new one recently, and J.D. Vance was there again. He had a pretty good speech about universities, which I'll probably put in the link. I'll put a link to in the description down below. Um, but yeah, he's been pretty good on. He's been basically consistent on all these issues, and in terms of compared to other candidates, J.D. Vance and Blake Masters are both significantly better. There's a lot of terrible Senate candidates this time around, like Josh Mandel. Uh, you even have uh, Jane Timken too. A lot of Mark Brnovich is kind of cringe too. You got the really terrible video with the nunchucks. A lot of bad Senate candidates this year. But with Josh Mandel and J.D. Vance and Blake Masters, they're definitely the best for next year's midterms. Um, but there's a lot of people who don't support J.D. Vance, but support Blake Masters, and I find this really confusing. Again, because they're both ideologically identical. Um, they have pretty similar rhetoric. I'd say that J.D. Vance leans more on the economic parts a little more, but besides that, in terms of rhetoric, literally the same. Uh, Record almost exactly the same. Only difference is that Masters has been supporting Trump like a little earlier, but that doesn't really mean much. And the reason why is because there's another candidate running in Arizona, Kerry Lake, who was very anti-Trump like only a couple years ago. The same people who throw that criticism at J.D. Vance also support Kerry Lake, even though she has probably arguably even in a worse record in terms of criticism um, of Trump. Which again, I really don't care about this at all. Really, all I care about is like actual, policy and ideology of candidates. What they're actually going to do in office, not like stuff from a couple years ago that really isn't indicative of what they'd actually do in office. But a lot of people uh, that don't support J.D. Vance but support Blake Masters, those people, they're a bit annoying, and I think probably over time, I think people will probably support J.D. Vance as people realize that really isn't anything bad about J.D. Vance. He's a very good candidate, um, very good policies, very good everything. And the last point I just want to get to is left wing criticism of J.D. Vance specifically, because he's been subject to a lot of attacks from again the $2 million buyouts against J.D. Vance, which I didn't mention. I think I didn't. Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but because I re-recorded this video a couple times. But $2 million of ads that were put out against J.D. Vance, tagging him as a never Trumper. Same things happen in the mainstream media. A lot of CNN, MSNBC. They call him like he's a grifter. He's this. He's that. Not true at all. Yeah. So another thing they like to do is attack how he's supported by Peter Thiel, and also another thing with this financial report which came out yesterday. This is from CNBC. There's a Business Insider article which you can't access on way back, but this article is more shorter. So, you know, uh, this article basically just goes over the financial disclosure that basically Senate candidates have to file. Really, any candidate actually for any federal office. Um, and what was released, like, really nothing significant at all. Really, there's like a lot of people who are trying to portray J.D. Vance as like corrupted in some way, even though in all his financial disclosures there's nothing, shady at all. He made money from his book, from the movie for Hillbilly Elegy, you know, normal stuff really, and from his venture capital stuff as well. Nothing really significant when it comes to that. But there will still be people who attack J.D. Vance relentlessly. On the left, I don't really like to pay attention to them that much, since they're just gonna hate any Republican no matter what, um, including Josh Mandel and all these other people. Um, so I don't really like to pay attention to that too much. But there are progressives who like to attack, you know, J.D. Vance. He's a fake populist, garbage like that, that people like to push. But yeah, but the last thing I want to show, like Masters defeats Mark Kelly. This is really inevitable at this point. Got the base Hoi 4 portrait that I made for both of them. uh, but yeah, I made these on Twitter, by the way. I made these. This was, I think this was yesterday. Time's kind of not. Time's is going by really fast right now, so I can't really keep track. But I made this recently. Um, pretty based. But if you want to see more of this on Twitter, then you can follow me on there, which is where I'm gonna wrap up this video. Where I wish you all a good day. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a good day. And I'll see you all in the next video. Follow me on Twitter. Like and comment down below for additional. If you want to show your support. And yeah, have a good day, everyone. I'll see you all in the next video. Farewell.